Just a quick disclosure to share in conjunction with this podcast. Each of us are speaking to our personal experiences and do not consider ourselves experts and cannot offer medical, therapy, financial, or legal advice. We represent a wide range of experience on the autism spectrum and will always honor each perspective that is brought to our discussions. Our experiences, opinions, and perspectives are all unique and different and will be celebrated. Thank you so much for listening and connecting with us. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to Navigating Adult Autism, where we are just a bunch of moms with a lot of experience, a lot of opinions, and a lot of perspectives. And today we are talking about what's called SWAP services.
Southwest Autism Project.
Okay. Go ahead, Kara. We're going to shoot it off to you.
Thank you. Thank you. How many of us here, we've got Heather, Elizabeth, Cynthia, Dawn, Kara, and Tara. We're all here. How many of you guys sat on the PAC? First of all, how many of you guys have sat on the PAC?
Let's say what the PAC is.
Yep.
Yes.
Parent Advisory Council?
Or committee.
Committee, council, I can't remember which.
You want to explain the PAC, Kara, and what it is?
Okay, the PAC is a group of parents that make recommendations to DMH with this autism funding that comes to Missouri. Now, Elizabeth, you sat on the PAC.
Yeah,
right?
I was on it. Yeah, I was on it until I started working for one of the providers. So then, of course, I had to resign
Conflict
because
of
I
interest.
couldn't be voting to give money to my employer.
Yep. I sat on the PAC for 2 to 3 years. I'd resigned in 2019.
And how are you guys appointed to the PAC?
You're asked.
Yeah.
By
You're
who?
asked to come on by PAC parents that are already on. You're invited to come on. Ideally, I think they want you to come to a few meetings, right? Just to
Right,
kind of
right.
see what it's about. And then they turn around and then if you still want to be on the PAC, then they vote you in.
And you parents all decide how Missouri autism funds will be spent.
Yes.
These
Right now.
specific
Yes.
Specific, yes.
Yes, right now Missouri Autism Project for the year of 2024. The funding is $9,017,135. What that consists of is 5 regional projects. So it's broken down into 5 different areas. It's funded through the Missouri Department of Mental Health Division of Developmental Disabilities. And currently, right now, it services approximately about 4,000 families statewide. Many people out into the community, they don't know what SWAP is. They don't know where this funding is. You know, they first hear about it when they go to their case manager over at Abilities First or CC Links. And then the case managers say, hey, we've got some SWAP services, we've got some openings, and then that's when you learn about it. But truly, a lot of parents don't know how much funding we get and then what providers offer what services. So at this podcast, we wanted to just educate the community, let them know where this money's coming from, how it was developed, and then also specifically on the providers that get the money, how much money they get, and then the services they provide to our families.
Absolutely. And we are, like you said, one of 5. And when I was in St. Louis raising my oldest, Nicole, Miss Elizabeth, and it was a different model up there. So It was interesting because ours was a kind of the family allocation. I was just given a check, and I used that check for respite. Now, one of the things I've noticed, though, too, when you divide it up between that many families, that check really wasn't that big. When we're talking about therapies, when we're talking about services, I mean, it helped us. We were able to add that, into our lives and provide respite for ourselves. But as far as paying for any additional therapies or autism specific type of things, we were just given that check and no guidance. So
right. And I know there's 5 different areas, and looking at the map, you can pull it up online and you can see there's a map and it's color coded. There are, I believe, two of them that are currently doing the Northwest Missouri Project and then also the East Missouri Project. They get that family allocation. So they get that every year, that certain amount of money that they can freely spend. I think there's some criteria, but that they can go ahead and spend it and they don't have to go to specific providers. Now, the areas for Central Missouri, Southeast Missouri, and then Southwest Missouri Project, where we live, they are a shared unit contract. So there are providers that go to the PAC parents and they put in proposals once a year. And then the PAC parents vote on which providers get how much money and what services.
And how
Correct?
many parents serve on the PAC board at once?
Well, I know, I think in our area, is it 4 in Joplin and 4 in Springfield?
that's what it was.
So it's 8 altogether, but it's rarely ever filled.
Correct. And there are certain term limitations, but if there is no one that is applying or interested in being on the PAC, then those term limitations are Extended. Okay, we'll use that word. And Kara too, they have voted that at this point they're doing every 2 years. So when that decision's made, it's actually less because it takes so long for all those presentations and to get the voting done that they're halfway through the year.
Right.
So they had changed to doing it every 2 years last year.
And something that's also changed from whenever I was on the PAC, they used to meet every month. So Joplin and Springfield parents would meet in Mount Vernon halfway, and we'd meet once a month. And then also the providers, all the providers receiving money, the directors would also come and meet with the PAC parents and explain to them what has taken place in the last month. You know, of course, there's always good stories to tell. Not rarely ever, hey, we've had this problem. So it's all positive, which isn't always the case.
Right. And open to interpretation to the listeners, whether that is as positive as it should be.
So do the 4 parents...
Yeah, go for it.
I'm just asking questions. It's Heather. It's okay. So the 4 parents that are on the PAC board for like Southwest Missouri or whatever, are they reaching out at any point to the community? Because I feel like asking families what they're needing and wanting, or is this just an opinion of the people that are on the board?
Yep.
Well, I went to, when I can only speak for
agree,
myself. I can only speak for myself, but I remember when there were different conferences, like the Burrell Center at one time I went to, and we set up, I shared a table with somebody, and I had my own little survey because I wanted to know as a parent, hey, what do these families out? I know what I need of services, but what do the other parents want? And so I would do my own little surveys.
Yeah.
And
It was up to the family. It was up to that person. There was
if they
no
wanted.
requirements for them to research and no method or anything that was set into place to gather that information. It was up to that individual to
So
research.
I could see, as we know, autism or special needs community can be isolating for sure. Obviously, I think we've all experienced isolation from information and from people. So this, to me, is something that, I've been very involved in lots of things, but never really fully had anyone explain to me what PAC was.
Correct.
Which is probably a problem.
It is a
I
huge
agree.
problem.
It is a huge problem. I wish Elizabeth and Kara still sat on the PAC.
Yeah.
I know when I attended a meeting years ago with you, Kara, and we were actually with someone from OTC, which is Ozark Technical Community College here in Springfield, Missouri. And we were getting maybe funding for an autism specialist at OTC.
Trying.
Trying.
She was gathering
Yes,
information.
and she was a professor or something. Listen, remember that? She was not impressed with that board. I'm just going to say it because that's my opinion.
We rode home with her, and she was just amazed on the structure of it.
It was very poorly orchestrated. Yes, it really was. And I think we talked about someone in Jeff City appoints these parents, though, right? That's how it started. Is that right, Elizabeth? Who? It started there, though.
I've got a date here. So it was established in 1991 as a pilot program. The regulations were established in 1999. Each regional autism project has, here we go, a parent advisory council, which stands for PAC, comprised of individuals with ASD or family members of individuals with ASD. The PACs make recommendations to the Department of Mental Health again.
But Missouri is giving all these parents all this money to decide.
$9 million.
$9 million. to decide where it goes.
Now, for Southwest Missouri, where we're from in Springfield, Missouri, we actually get 1 million out of that 9 million. We get $1,645,138 according to 2024. And then there's 7 providers that get this money split up, and then we'll go over each provider and how much money they get and what services that they.
Okay.
And it's not evenly divided between the providers, right? Because they're kind of pleading their case as to what they need and how much money they need for what.
Well, and I think, was it 24 counties? Is that right? That Southwest Missouri? I think it's depending on how big of the area too, because you look at St. Louis, which is only 3 counties here, but they get 1.7.
Right, that makes sense.
And then Central Missouri, if you look at the map again, you can find it online. The color coded of the blue, they get over $2 million, but they have look at all those counties that they also service too.
I wonder if it's based on the number of people with disabilities in that county, or, I mean, how do they? Is it just general population? Probably.
It could be. But one of the, and there's a clarification I do want to make real quick. When the parents make that recommendation, then it does have to be approved.
Yes.
I don't know if it's ever not been approved though.
Right.
So there is a mechanism where if a pack were to go totally rogue, there is,
Horseback riding for all.
I would be on that pack. So,
But they vote that night.
so they vote, but then it's their recommendations.
Yeah.
So it has to be approved. So there is a mechanism, but again, I don't know if there's any real, anybody that's ever been denied, any recommendations that have been denied, but there is a little bit of a safety net there.
Okay.
But back to what Tara was saying, as far as like the division, when it started, the parents went up and what they were fighting for were services for rural families.
Okay.
So it might not be just pure numbers. It might be percentage of the rural families that need to be touched with this funding. So
That's an interesting fact.
yes, and that's interesting and sometimes a barrier to good communication.
Yes.
During those meetings.
I think I asked this to Kara already, but is this, I don't know if this is the word, but is this discretionary funding? Like, can it be decreased or increased, or can it be taken away from certain providers?
Now, I talked to one of the providers, and she informed me that there has not been any new funding in a few years.
Yeah,
Any new additional funding over this $9 million.
Yeah, back when we were active, we
Were getting consistently maybe 50,000
extra.
to 100 every year that we would turn around just in our area and divide it up.
Yeah.
Or make the recommendations to whatever we felt was appropriate for the time. Depending on what that provider put him or her proposal in for.
And so the Missouri legislature has to vote each year. This is a line item, right? So it's not guaranteed. Each year the legislature votes, okay,
That's what discretionary means, meaning that it has to be voted. It's not mandated by the Missouri
By law.
Constitution
But as far
that you
as
have to fund this.
Yeah, as far as I know, they've never taken away from it. Yeah, never taken away, right? It's always gone up or stayed the same.
Yeah,
They haven't
I know
taken
there were,
away.
some nervous times, but I don't think there was ever
Yeah.
when it was actually
But here
taken
recently,
away.
they haven't received any additional. I know Southwest Missouri Project, that may be different in the other areas, that they may have been able to get the other 4 areas some additional funding.
Right, especially if there's any population fluctuations and that type of thing, that might be the case.
And from my understanding from sitting on the PAC, I know in Southwest Missouri, if these providers didn't use it, they lost it. So you have to use it or you lose it.
Okay.
And have
Right?
they ever been replaced? Like, so I'm not going to name one of them, but of the 7, then let's just pretend.
Okay.
And we were asking if they ever got pulled back from the. So if these 7 people have always gotten the funds for the last 20 years, let's say, how does a new provider or organization coming into the community, how do they
Get their
apply
foot in the
to
door?
be one of those?
They go to the
those
meetings.
providers? Okay.
That's what happened when, Elizabeth and I were sitting, Art Inspired.
Okay.
They wanted funding. They went, probably months before every meeting they were coming, getting to know the PAC, they were getting to know them, and they went months before we actually got additional funding to turn around and give them to make the recommendations for them to get some of this funding. And then preferred two, I think, was another one.
Yeah, so not all of these have been long-standing. So
Right.
they've been added over the years. Do you remember that meeting, though? Were you there at the meeting that one parent maybe is sitting at this table or not sitting at this table? They weren't going to fund.
They weren't going to
And
fund
they were not-
transportation.
They
either.
weren't, and they weren't going to fund. And I asked this person, said, "Well, can we all do some math here? They're only asking for such a small amount." I said, "I want you to take a moment and just look at your budget and take 2% and tell us what that is." And so it kind of went around, and they said, "Okay." And I said, "If you just give 2% up, you're funded this new provider, and you're opening all this for these families." And they did vote on it that night.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was, it did take some persuading, didn't it? Because, some of these, there was a couple, and I don't know who sits on the PAC now, but there were a couple on the PAC that were there from the very beginning, and they take pride in that. And I think sometimes some people get stuck in their ways and get stuck at giving, the same amount of, giving the money to the same providers. Now, we're talking about providers here, so I thought I'd go ahead and name off a few of them. We're each going to talk about one of them. Midwest, Easter Seals Midwest, years ago, it was Judavine, and then changed to something else, and then now it's Easter Seals. They receive the most amount of money. And then each one of us, like I said, we're going to mention it, and then we can give how much money that they get, and then talk about the services. The next one's Burrell Autism Center, Judavine Center for Autism, Preferred Family Healthcare, Ozark Center for Autism, Art Counterpoint, and then Abilities First. So those are the 7 that receive funding, that $1.6 million.
So for a family, if you're listening and you're thinking, well, okay, I'd like to do this, your child, your young adult, they will have to be a client of the regional office. That is the funding mechanism. As Kara was saying, it's going to go through that support coordinator. So keep that in mind.
Which the regional office is the Department of Mental Health, correct? The regional center is the Department of Mental Health.
And they cannot access SWAP services through your case manager if, for one, they have Medicaid. And say if Medicaid does not offer these services, then yes, they can. But if Medicaid pays for these services, then they cannot access SWAP. That's one of the criteria.
Also private insurance.
Private insurance too.
So because Zachary has some SWAP, but he also has a Medicaid waiver. He's got the community, but there's certain things that doesn't pay for.
Exactly.
And so then
you
SWAP
can
has
access
come
SWAP.
in. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is that, payer of last resort type of thing?
Yes. Yes. Correct. Correct. Now, how do you get SWAP services? You have to go through your case manager over at Abilities First or CC Links, and then they
Or a
will
service coordinator, you mean?
Service
Or
coordinator.
a case manager, or whatever it's called. Varies at different locations, I would assume. What are they called at the ARC, Elizabeth?
Well, in this region, they're support coordinators.
Okay. That's kind of a term across the board.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then at that point, too, they recommend for you to give requesting for Autism Project services. They want you to have as much documentation as possible. And then your case manager should have that already.
Okay. So we're going to start with, Carrie, you want to start whoever you have, or no, or Dawn? Do you want?
Let you breathe for a second.
You want to
Maybe
breathe for a
shift
minute,
it.
Kara?
Okay,
We can shoot to Dawn. Dawn, who do you have that you're going to talk about?
Yeah, I was going to talk about Burrell Autism Center.
Please do.
Okay. So my son JR, we did not, our private insurance, when JR was diagnosed, paid for 10 visits of speech per lifetime.
Very helpful.
10 visits of speech per lifetime. So we will probably be talking.
Fix your
later
red up
about-
in 10 sessions.
That's right. That's all it
That's
takes
right.
for his whole life.
The sarcasm is thick right now for me.
Wow. Might get thicker.
We should have gone there, Heather. Huh?
So SWAP was the services that we got that were professional, did come from SWAP, and we have received services from Burrell Autism. And I believe the center was started maybe even after we were receiving services from Burl. The timeline's fuzzy, sorry, in my brain.
2004, 2003, 2005, somewhere was when the center started. Because I remember the boys, Chase's first steps, people went over to start the center. And Chase.
That was a big deal.
Oh, no, I guess Chase was born in 2005, so it was after that. I was thinking Nate. So, yeah, 2007, 2008.
And from the documentation that has been provided to me, some of the services that Burl currently provides is counseling, caregiver training, family resource services, and I'm going to pause right there. Burl put out, and I think they still do, one of the best resource guides for this local area. And they used to print it out, hand it out at, the Autism Speaks walks, the Autism Info Blast, and things like that. And that was superb, and they kept it updated. And shout out to Mofeet. They used to do the same thing, but they're outside of our area. Anyway, social skills groups. Going to pause there. My son's 27. When he was still in high school, we were going to participate in a social skills group, and he went in so rough that we kind of sort of got uninvited.
Yeah.
I do. Zion did do a social group.
Burl offered a good one, I think.
And I think that it was, Kara asked me earlier if Zion used any swap. It was free to us. So I think it was swap money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, if memory serves me correct, we were like one of the first opportunities. And so hopefully they learned. I got some theories on why he went in so rough, but whatever. They may have a wait list for applied behavior analysis for independent living skills. I will say that we did receive independent living skills. Somebody actually came out to the house to work with JR on frying an egg, cleaning the house, things along that line. That was helpful. Occupational therapy and speech language pathology. And I didn't know about the speech language pathology because, I mean, even today at 27, I'm still searching for speech opportunities for JR.
Yes.
And
Burl,
since we're talking about resources, this isn't SWAP, but because we're a university town, Southwest Missouri State has an speech language hearing clinic, and there's an intake there, but their services now are absolutely free.
Wow.
So JR got off.
You used to have to pay for that.
Yes.
Like $25 to $50.
A
I'm trying to
session.
remember.
I remember paying $20
And it's through
a session.
students, supervised by.
they're working towards their
They're
degree.
doing their hours.
Yes, right. So I'll keep you.
But Dawn, was it for
apprised.
speech and it was for physical therapy or occupational therapy as well? Missouri State. When my son went, it was for speech and OT because they did
Both.
both.
Together. Yeah.
That was a great-
We
that
didn't
was a
get
great resource.
occupational, but we're going to try the speech again from the speech language hearing clinic. So supposedly this will happen sometime this summer.
So I had
Excited
called
about
all
that.
of these providers in advance and spoke to most of the directors, and I did ask them, as you send me this email with the services that are funded through SWAP, please let me know if there's a wait list so we can let families know. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Right,
And so
right.
there were, he did say the applied behavior analysis, independent living skills, occupational therapy, and speech and language pathology that is funded through SWAP. There is very well a wait list, but to continue to check. And as we do this podcast, it may not air for another month, so it may not be exact, timing, but, to continue to check with the clinic to see
Yeah, good
on the
point.
waiting lists.
Very good point. Okay, moving on, right? Or Dawn, did you want to
No, I
finish
guess
things?
it's a
Go ahead.
question.
Go right
Does
ahead.
anybody know the Autism Center used to have an age cutoff? So, I mean,
Oh, then
is
I
that
don't
still
know.
the case? Are they still
They
dealing
don't
with
see adults.
children? Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Diagnosis wise, I know they've made some changes lately, so I don't know, but just not too long ago, they were still they were holding their age limit for diagnosing at 8.
Okay.
That might have gone up because, like I said, they've made some changes. But yeah, so if you're looking at them for that type of service, you'll want to check.
And did you say Burl? Is that the name of it? Burl Center? Like, what is the exact name?
What's on the email?
What is on the
It
email?
says Burl Autism Center is on the SWMAP.
Okay. Just wanted to
And
make that clear.
The new director is.
And Burl's a
I
part of
talked to him.
Cox.
He
Hospital.
used to be Susie Henderson.
Yes.
Hi,
Loved
Susie.
her.
Oh,
She's
yes.
awesome. Thank you, Susie. She has since retired from that position and moved on to something else, I think, with Burl. Is that right?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I knew she had retired,
I thought
but I
she
didn't
retired.
know if they kept her.
Hopefully she's enjoying life.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
In her retirement.
hopefully. She did a lot of work.
I
We
wouldn't
saw
surprised
her
if they kept her,
everywhere.
yeah.
And all of
If you're out there, Susie, let us know. Send us an email.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing woman.
I actually saw her. She is out there because I saw her on Facebook the other day. So she was traveling or something.
Yeah. Good.
But the new director is Dr. Seth Allen over there. Really nice man.
Oh, that's
Oh.
Brooke Allen's husband. Oh, I know. Brooke Allen is an ABA.
Yeah.
BCBA.
BCBA.
Yes.
Really?
Yes, I like Brooke. I like Brooke. And I
Yes.
like her husband too. Mhm.
Yeah.
They're good
Yes,
people. Yeah, they're
they've been around a long time.
a long time.
Small world.
That's what it is down here, Springfield, Missouri, right? Okay. Okay, Heather, what do you think?
Okay.
Heather, what's your swap service announcement?
Oh goodness. My swap service is art inspired, which I understand is through Abilities First. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, because I never really put two and two together. Our service coordinator is from CC Links, obviously, who opened us up to this originally. But so there's some transition going on. So I would speak just quickly to say that this was the only thing that Zachary has been able to participate in since
Why is that?
high school.
Why is that?
Because
Waitlist?
well, it probably waitlist, and also Zachary is, I'm just gonna say, classically autism, and he's not a social being, and so some of these other things that we'll talk about today are just not things that would fit him. Music and things of the arts is stuff that you can do individually and also with a group, but still have some time to yourself, I guess you'd say. And so this is the only thing that's really been great for us. Zachary has taken a photography class for a couple sessions, and then he took his very first class with a group. He'd never had a class with a group before. Everything that he had done prior was one-on-one. That's generally how he learns the best, but he'd never really had peer interaction. So this was a nice gift to have this music group, and he did really well in that. But I'm sad to say that the thought is that those are no longer going to be available. It sounds like that there is, I guess, a merger is what we would call it. Is that what we're calling this?
Jamie McGranahan, who started Art Inspired many years ago. How many years ago was that, 10? Remember when Elaine lady came in town and we went and had a spa day? Yeah, when she brought her in when they were starting. Okay, and then she recently has left Abilities First, Art Inspired, and moved to the Autism Clinic.
Yep, she's our autism resource specialist.
Yes, and so I don't know if that was the reason, but anyway, they've decided Abilities First has decided to restructure a lot
and
of the programs.
They were partnering. Jamie was fabulous, and in every music and theater class, obviously they provided. But they were working with this the Center for Music Therapy there at Drury as well. So that's, I think, where the connection is maybe being disconnected and moving on. But the hope is, from the list of things that they're hoping to do, they're hoping to have, so there's no current classes or anything to register for, but it sounds like starting in June, so June to, July, I guess, it'll go from, their class schedules will go from July to July moving forward once they establish that after this merger that's taking place. And they're hoping to expand massively, it says. So we'll see how that all shakes out. It looks like social media savvy is something that they're going to have a class about, art and theater, and something involving interviewing, bookbinding, cosmetology, and some music, it says, etc. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. Because like I say, I'm certainly sad from a parent perspective because there's nothing else for us to do. So it's just me.
So your
figuring out
program was
stuff.
cut. and
our program was cut.
you're finished.
Yeah. So we'll see what the new version is.
They're
and-
combining it with the community education department
Yeah.
and renaming it LEAP. LEAP.
Yeah, it's not going to be called Art Inspired.
No.
So, yeah, over the last few years, it kind of started, just on site. And then as they progressed, they started doing more out in the community. So some of these classes would be at a local church or in the park, the photography
library.
class.
Jury,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So I think this kind of what they're looking at is the next step.
Trying to grow it, maybe make it bigger.
In that, next step into the community.
Yeah.
As is kind
And
of.
they're looking at getting their facilities. They're looking at partnering, is what I've been told, partnering with the Springfield Regional Art Council, and then also Springfield Little Theater, and getting more out into the community. I think is what he said.
And I don't want to steal any of their thunder because I know some of this hasn't, a lot probably hasn't. They're just kind of beginning. It's not gone real public, so I don't want to.
I think they're still in the planning.
So, but
they're
yeah,
still organizing
it's
into the
really,
planning.
yeah, they're really looking
Really new.
at
Doing some new
the
things.
community piece of it. How do these classes look in the community, and how does it look for the people that are using this funding within the community? But
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much because that's
Like you said, stealing their thunder.
yeah.
Right? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
And my thought would be just from from our end of the spectrum, I would say that we can't always do really highly visible community things, and we still need supports and things to do. So my blood pressure rises a bit
Spill it.
when we talk about because we need all. That's the whole point of the spectrum and the broadness of it. Some people are very social. Let's get them some social stuff. Other people need smaller grouped type things that are less. Yes. So I'll just.
You're perturbed that it was taken away
I'm
from you and you
perturbed.
want it back. And I
It's a
think
wonderful word.
I think a lot of people are perturbed.
Yes.
Well, I think that there was a gap that needed to be filled that had never been filled, and Jamie filled it.
Yeah.
And she did an awesome, extraordinarily awesome job at it. And so did Morgan and the other people there at the Center for Music Therapy. So
they packed the theaters when it was time for the show.
And to be honest, it's the only show that Zachar's ever been in. Because the music, they did, adaptive music. They were doing instruments, obviously. Some of them sang. Zachary doesn't sing on cue. He sings all the time, but not when you ask him to. So, but he did instruments and stuff. And it was just kind of magical to get to experience a little performance. Because in school, we certainly were not included in those.
Right.
So I think as long as we can expand, but I don't want to forget the kind of most isolated population that still need some of that stuff.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So with LEAP, if you're hearing this, this is the parent recommendation. This is what we
our
want to see.
PAC board. This is our parent advisory.
We're our own pack right now.
We are.
Yeah. And to add, Art Inspired currently right now gets $51,719
Which
for Southwest Missouri.
I know that
Which it's-
we were in the first Art Inspired when it was called Miracle Project. The first year it was Miracle Project. Zion was in it 2 years, and then Hannah was in it and as a volunteer the second year. So it also gives the opportunity for a lot of volunteers, a lot of student volunteers, which is
Educates
wonderful.
and
It
informs.
educates, informs, but it was a great project, and the theater was packed.
Yeah. That pilot program was really fun because we also did the book club for the parents.
Yep.
That were there. We were reading.
That's right.
The book.
I forgot about that. Yeah, we read a book together with Sharon. I think
So
it
it
was
was
Sharon.
it covered a lot of needs, and I have a lot of very
a good
fond
idea.
Yeah.
memories. Of,
Which makes me think about, because I don't have, besides you guys, I don't meet a lot of parents that are in my situation or whatever. And I met those people, and I got to it was kind of a little bit of parent counseling session while they were in those classes.
Absolutely.
We sat in the hallway and I met new friends,
right.
Yeah.
And it was also too because a lot of times I would tell parents, because one of the biggest calls is for respite. And I'm like, well, and I would recommend this program because I say it's not respite, but if you need to go grocery shopping, you can leave your child there. They've
Yeah.
got your cell phone. They've got,
good point.
it's all put together. They know
Yeah.
the plan, your child's plan, and they know all these pieces. So if you schedule it right, it's, it is nice to sit there and talk to the other families. But if that is your only moment to go get a certain errand done
Yeah.
that would be upsetting to your child or just wouldn't
They
work.
didn't want the parents in there. They kicked
No,
you
they
out.
don't want them in the classroom.
Right.
no.
Yeah, so it was a great opportunity to find something else to do.
Well, and kids act differently when you're around. They
do.
And so
for sure.
So by pushing the parents out, they can get the true reality of what the kids can do
That's
and
right.
can't do.
I agree.
There's value, though, as a parent, I think, sitting in and watching a professional interact with your child so that you can steal some of their techniques.
It should be through like a hidden window, like a
Yeah.
mirror, like at the police station.
One-way mirror.
A one-way mirror. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe you can call somebody and fight for it to come back, Heather. We can make some calls. At this point, that needs to happen, to meet with people and talk to people and figure it out, because that makes my heart hurt for
And
you
we need to
Zachary.
recruit parents to sit on the PAC.
That's
We'll talk
really-
about that at the
Okay.
end.
Okay.
Yeah, and how you can do that, and then when the next meetings are, and so on. I have
Okay.
a schedule for you guys.
Okay, good. So I'm here to talk about the other SWAP service, which is Judavine Center for Autism.
And Judavine receives $267,232.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, thank you, Kara. They do have a specialized autism assessment. I know that is the first thing you do if you get services from there. Excuse me. My son had that assessment when he was 6. It's when Carrie Duncan actually worked there, and it was a good. It was interesting, and good. They do specialized autism training. They have ABA services. They have community inclusion, pre-employment service, resource services, phone support, among other things. But on one of my lists here, they also do budgeting, domestic skills, first aid, and medical independence, organizing, scheduling. They do training in relationships. And they say transportation here. Now, that's a little hot button for me, this transportation. I don't know if they provide transportation to services or if I don't know what that means. Personal safety, community awareness, exercise and nutrition, occupational skills, phone skills, self-advocacy, personal hygiene, and shopping.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. They've been around a long time, which was started by a mother in St. Louis, Blackwell. What's her first name again? Dawn. I looked at Dawn. Sorry, she kind of panicked there.
So Becky's the daughter.
Blackwell's her last name. She's deceased now, but she started Judavine.
Yeah, and Judavine's a family name because I always wondered, Judavine, what's that?
Yeah. I Googled it earlier.
Wait, 'cause-
We used to live
Lois.
close.
Lois Blackwell.
Yeah.
Yes, she
so
was.
is autism diagnostic services, I thought it was only if it wasn't covered by medical insurance.
Exactly.
And that's not?
any of these services, if
What do you
it's
mean?
not, if say they don't have any insurance at all, they don't have Medicaid
Okay,
and they don't have
okay,
insurance,
okay.
then they could possibly access this
Okay.
under
For,
Thank you.
for that individual.
Yeah.
If that individual doesn't have that other funding.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then Judavine actually, like Kara had said earlier, it changed. It was bought out. It was like Touchpoint for a while, and now it's Easter Seals. But then Judavine came back, I heard. So now this is what they offer.
Judavine and Easter Seals had the same root in Judavine. But yeah, they split.
They
at
split.
one
Okay.
point.
Well said, Elizabeth. Thank you. But listen, my son's 32, and that was back when he was 6. When I went through the parent training through there, which was very deep, very. What do you call it, Dawn? It was very.
I'm responding to the parent training because
Yes.
I too went through it.
Yes.
And I think of the service providers, they were the only one. Of course, there wasn't that many that did parent training. And I think
took like 2 or 3 days or something.
Yeah.
if you can't hire professionals to work with your child, then I think the parent. We're motivated. We don't pay ourselves. I think we need to do it. And so we need to have some training. How do I best do this? And, Judavine provided that in my day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were
And,
good. They were good. So, That's all for Judah Mavine Center for Autism.
Oh, and I'll add, when I talked
yes,
to the
Carol?
director, Teresa Waffle, she did say that the ABA therapy, they currently do not have a BCBA.
Okay.
So that is
Scratch
not
that.
available at this point.
Scratch that from my presentation. Okay. Okay. Elizabeth?
Okay, so the Arc of the Ozarks, their funding now is for respite in the Monette area. I know that earlier I mentioned that the roots and what is still kind of a hot topic in that discussion of funding is this funding was traditionally and originally meant for families in rural areas that that didn't have easy access to some of the things that we might have in our big metropolis of Springfield. So,
And funding, they received $33,502.
so this respite, once a month at the Saturday program, going out into the
nice.
community. Usually there's not really a limit. It's just going to match on, who needs it, usually about 5 to 10 people. So there's not a wait list. In the past, the ARC had been approved for funding for our summer camp program. And to provide scholarships and to pay for those students, which is a very sought after program because
What
it's
happened
very
there?
unique. It was voted out because it was not rural.
So that was one of them they did take away funding. Okay, when they don't normally do that.
Monette seems rural to
No,
me.
no.
No, this was for
The
Springfield.
camp is in Springfield. So yes, they were able to keep because Monette, yes, is definitely going to be rural.
Yeah.
And the person kind of in charge of that, her name is Triana, and she said, the next trip that they're going to take, it's on a Saturday, typically 9 to 3, and they're going to go May 4th to Dickerson Park Zoo. And she said they try as much as possible to do community trips to get them out into the community.
That's really nice. I like
But it's
that.
only in Monette, right?
Right, that's correct.
That's nice. Awesome. Okay, Cynthia?
Mine is the Easter Seal, and they actually service 23 counties.
Well, yes, we talked about Judavine and Easter seals prior,
Yes.
so now this is Easter seals.
It's Easter Seals, and they service 23 counties, and you have to be with the regional center to get these services, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And the funding, this is the one provider that receives the most funding. And I'll explain this. Originally, Easter Seals, or previously Judavine, they were the only provider. And at one point, the PAC decided we need more providers. We need to give more options to the family. So say you didn't like, the Easter Seals, or you didn't like that service. Now you have 6 others that you can choose from.
Yeah.
They currently, 6 other choices. So currently they receive $854,822.
Wow.
This is the most.
Okay.
And they have parent education training. They go into school districts, and they will also work with the schools. And some of their individual family support services are community inclusion, family support, specialized groups and sibling workshops, respite, peers, social skills and training group, functional behavioral assessments, and music therapy. And
Good.
that's
Easter seals.
That's Easter
Okay.
Seals. Mhm.
And currently, when I talked, Christine Brigg, she is still the director over at Easter Seals. And I talked to her a couple days ago and I said, okay,
She's
you
been
sent
there
me this.
forever.
She has been there a long time. And I said, so, you sent me this list of what you provide with SWAP funding. Tell me the wait lists. And she said, most of our services that we do offer have wait lists. And I'm like, why is that? You receive the most amount of money. And she went on to say that getting back to, for the last few years, they have not increased the amount of money that these providers receive. And of course, the diagnoses are going up, and then more diagnoses are coming in, but they don't have enough money to turn around and fund those services for the newly diagnosed.
Wow.
So
Numbers keep growing.
So they're still using. So the person that got services through SWAP funding, like 5 years ago, they have never given up their. The person
Would
is
you?
still.
Would you really?
No.
No.
But I mean, there has to be, like, if you're getting 5 years of hippotherapy. No, is it hippotherapy? That's horse. It's not. Hippo is
Hypno?
horse.
Maybe hypno? No.
It's not a hippopotamus.
I'll say that's a
Horse therapy, they still probably apply for it every year or whatever, and get that horse therapy instead of letting the newly diagnosed take advantage of any of those programs. Is that what you're saying?
That's probably the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is, I'm glad you brought that up, Tara, because that's kind of the talk I'm starting to hear, not necessarily specific to SWAP, but just we need to start moving families through therapies and building those skills in the parents and the families and the caregivers,
Right.
because we're diagnosing people and immediately there's a wait list, you know, so we've got to really build, because sometimes we're getting comfortable. We have these services, right, Carol? Why would we give them up?
Yeah.
But where there's families that are doing without with this fresh new diagnosis,
Yeah.
because they just have to,
And
they can't get
yeah.
the services.
And from a mother's perspective, I would understand that you would want those services when they're very young, because that's when they're learning, and that's when they're much more. Not that I want services taken away from my child either, but I know that I definitely want more funded so that those early diagnosed children have services.
Yeah, because you want to be able to get that before more issues, more barriers, more problems, more behaviors develop, because they're, those will come without having some type of intervention.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so
Okay, Tara,
I think I
you're up.
am the last one. Am I the last one, or you take it? Okay,
Kara's
I'm the
gonna
second
wrap
to
it
last one. So I think we have referred to it as the Ozark Center for Autism, but its actual name is Bill and Virginia Levin Center for Autism Ozark Center.
Yes, and they receive $126,000.
Okay, so that 126,000.
Are they in Joplin?
Yes.
Yep, in Joplin.
Only Joplin.
And Talia, is that her? Talia Williams is the one who sent this to Kara, so thank you for doing that. Their money is spent by, they have a feeding clinic for the intensive feeding program, assisting kids on the spectrum who have a limited variety or quantity of foods they eat. The kids come into the center during meal times at the minimum of 1 meal a day or up to 3 meals a day, 5 days a week, lasting 9 to 12 weeks. And that covers the dietitian, right?
Very
on
intense
staff.
program.
Yep. There is a wait list of 10 kids, but currently, but due to the length of the program, spots come up quicker than all of the other programs. And then also, I don't necessarily understand this thing, but I think it's the second program they have is a social skills group. It's for kids or teenagers and adults 13 or older, and the program is designed for people who are expected to live independently one day, focusing on daily living and social skills. They meet 2 hours a week, and they're held Thursdays from 4 to 6. So they're customized. The social groups are customized to client goals, aspirations, and areas of needs. So, and they do have a wait list of 40 people right now currently.
Wow. Okay, and that's in Joplin, Missouri.
Joplin,
Wow,
Missouri.
good. Okay, Kara, how are we going to wrap this up with SWAP services?
Well, there's one more that
Okay,
we haven't
go ahead.
talked about. It is called Preferred Family Health. That's the last one. It's now called. They've renamed it again.
Okay.
I think it's Flyer Fly. Flyer Fly is the name.
Flyer or fire?
Flyer. Flyer. Fly. That's how they're answering.
I said firefly.
No, Flyer.
I know.
Okay.
I got it. But I don't know why that was so funny.
We were making a joke.
Oh.
No, your face was kind of funny on it, trying to figure it out. It's kind of a strange name, let's be real.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That is
I thought it was going to be
weird.
fight or flight. That could be a good one, too. Like,
Yeah.
Well, that's the truth. Yeah.
yeah. The truth. Yeah. Jeez.
They
Okay.
receive $133,319. Okay, I'm just going to be upfront, be honest.
Go for it.
I had reached out to every single one of these providers. I've given them over a week to get back with me, and I requested them to send me an email because we wanted to read it right. We wanted to make sure that we gave you the correct information and we didn't just stand it. So I was like, can you put it down in email and just let me know on what services you provide with the SWAP funding? And Preferred was the only one that didn't get back with me. So I'm going to wing it a little bit, just saying. I did talk to two people. I talked to Amy, and then I also talked to Dan, and then they kept referring me on to somebody else. And she never called me back, never emailed me. So I did talk to them. So I did take some notes on what they do.
But they didn't want to send anything out in an email.
Yeah, I gave him a friendly reminder this morning saying, hey, my deadline's 10 o'clock on Friday. We have our podcast taping at noon. And then he referred back to me saying that he would actually have to get it approved through HR before he could get back with me, which all of this is public information.
Right. So what's the problem?
Yeah.
And all these other providers gave us all the information.
In a timely
because
manner.
they're happy to help. They wanted the resources out there.
Yeah.
This is part of helping the disability community, for crying out
Free
loud.
advertisement.
And listen, not everybody's had a positive experience with Preferred. I'm just going to throw it out there. So I wish they would have communicated.
Yeah.
That's my perspective and my opinion and my experience, by the way, because my son used to be with them years ago.
Thank you, Mary. You put words in my mouth.
Well, no, you keep going, Kara, because I know you have other things to say about it.
Well, basically what they do, again, from talking to them a couple times, and then sitting on the PAC a few years back, they were one of them that came in and really wanted funding at that time. My daughter was in the process of trying to find a job, and we're like, oh my goodness, we really need this additional employment services. So I pushed for them to get funding. And they did. And so what they do provide is, Voc Rehab has this employment. And it is how long, Voc Rehab? So what we find is these individuals that are on the autism spectrum, they may need some additional help before they actually go out and get a job. So they offer classroom time. They offer interview skills, prep.
Pre-employment
skills.
Yeah.
Oh, Zion did do cash register training at Preferred.
Yeah.
Did you have a good experience at Preferred, Tara?
Oh, I really like Kayla. She
Yes.
did the cash register training.
Yes. I had one person
She
I
was
liked there, too.
amazing.
One.
Yeah.
Other than
Yeah.
that, it was not a positive experience.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It wasn't a
And then they
positive
also
focus.
offer, so once they get their job and Voc Rehab stops following them, then they continue to follow them for a length of time to offer that additional assistance. So it's pre and post. Pre-Voc Rehab and post-Voc Rehab is what they
I
offer.
wonder how successful that is.
I don't know. It would have been nice to have known.
Yes. It'd be like, and for all these services, I'd like to know the success rate. Do they keep their data? Do they have a percentage?
They have to report data to the
They
PAC.
do?
Yeah.
They report data to the PAC.
Yeah.
Okay.
My
I
thought
didn't
would
know
be,
that.
though, just in vetting, because, worked with data and healthcare. And the question is the data, vetted? I guess that would be my question.
Well, I
I
know.
took a lot of data myself in my job for 8 years.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. So like I said before, when they come, now it's every other month. When they come, it's always success stories. All these providers, they never say anything negative about, oh, we had this person. But it's always positive. Oh, we're doing this. We got to see these clients and we got, here's a success story, and everybody kind of claps. Yay. But we know it's not always success stories. So let's be honest, providers, when you come to these meetings, the parents need to know.
Yes.
I think some raw data, because nothing's ever totally 100% positive. We all live life. We know that's not the case.
I remember years and years ago, one of the positive stories, and not to put this provider down, and I won't say which one it was, but their perspective was just different as me as a listener, because they were so excited. They had this activity, and they were talking about how hard they worked to call, even up to right before, and they were going to get everybody there, and they were calling and encouraging and pushing families. And I'm like, well, if you got to bribe them with cookies to get them there, is that really what they want? Is
Yeah.
that really what
Is
they
that
need?
a service they need?
Is that the best use of these funding?
Yeah.
Is funding if you have to work so stinking hard to get people to show up?
Yep.
And I think, since we're obviously going to be talking to parents that are mostly going to be listening to this podcast probably, I think the point is foundationally that just because, like, I learned this in the medical field 18 years, not non-clinical, but worked with people in the medical. And just saying that, you know how sometimes you grow up with this concept that, okay, well, this person is a doctor, so they must know, they're an expert. There's nothing they say that's not right?
Yeah.
So I think we have to make sure we kind of pull back the curtain a little bit on providers as well. All these people, whether they have great things and like they still struggle with stuff. The point would be, to me, is that as a parent advocate, we have to step in and kind of speak some truth.
Correct.
In a loving way, but speak it and actually, try to explain from our perspective what that, like you were saying, Elizabeth, like they think it's so awesome and they're trying to sell it really hard. Well, maybe there's something else that the community actually needs more that they just haven't been, communicated with about, whatever the case may be. But the other thing too is that for families that are like, okay, I don't have any of this and I'm listening to this. Okay, swap. That's my next call or whatever. I just would like to say too that, we were on the list. Zachary was diagnosed when he was 2. He will be 23 in a week. We were on the waiting list for 2 of these organizations and literally never, ever, 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 ever got a call. There's frustration too that there's money out there and I hope it's doing good things for lots of people, but I think there's maybe some more ways they could look into to reach more families, and maybe it is a term thing. If it's waiting lists because of you only have this $20 and it never grows, but the population is growing,
Right.
then we probably need to do some legislative stuff to get.
Maybe you'll get a
more
call
money.
after this podcast.
Can I ask how many people went to these PAC meetings?
Oh, we rarely had guest speakers.
I've been to several PAC meetings. I've
Dawn,
never
you've
sat
been
on
to
the
everything,
committee.
though. What about
Yeah.
okay? The average person that's not Dawn,
Right.
the
Yes.
superhero.
I've been to one.
I went to one.
And they're open. They're open meetings for anybody. Now, currently, right now, they're doing them every other month, and it's through Skype. They don't do in-person meetings. And I think what happened there was because of COVID, and they just continued because it's just easier for everybody instead of having to travel to Mount Vernon. They keep it.
But Terry had a point there, and that's what I was going to say is if families aren't there, and I know it's hard. We're so busy. We have all these things, but if we're not there, the providers are going to fill the void, and they're going to do it the best way they know how.
Right.
And
Or the way that's easiest for them.
yeah.
The most devastating comment I've heard, and I can never say Chantel's last name, the author of A Full Life with Autism, whose son Jeremy is,
Cicely,
Full Life with Autism. She wrote the book, came to an art conference. So read the book. Her son helped write the book with the mother. And he typed, because he's nonverbal, he typed, "People have jobs because I exist, but when I need services, there usually is nothing there for me." And it was like,
I mean, he's speaking the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of stuff, but I will say that the other, an aspect of this too, is just you do feel to a certain, at times, as a parent walking through this journey, you feel like you are a moneymaker for certain people. And that is hurtful.
True.
You just feel like you are yes, that's just what you feel like, kind
Or
of.
you a beggar.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's
right.
That's
You
how
have
I
to beg
feel.
and plead.
Yeah.
Like, and we've talked about this before. Why do parents have to be the ones that start all the stuff and start all the walks and the Judavines and
I think it's
all
because
that
we're
stuff?
the most aware. We live
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And
We see the need.
We have
Or
the
we
least
talk-
amount of time and energy though, because our
Good
kids
point.
take
point.
100% of what we
which
have.
is another
so-
reason we're doing this podcast.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of frustration and, information and what we're going through to help inform other
Yeah.
parents and providers of what it's like, because it doesn't get easier,
No.
and I feel like also with down at the recent passing of your mother and my father, and we're all going through things. It never stops for us.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like taking care of an ill parent. And I hate to compare the two, but it is.
It is, yeah.
It never stops physically, emotionally, paperwork.
Yep.
So sometimes we're just, as parents, we just get fed up and we're tired of it and we want to break and we want answers and we want help and we're tired of fighting for it all the time.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to fight for things when it's there. Now, well, anyway.
That's true. I mean, we spend so much time trying to educate ourselves too. I mean, and we're trying to work with and
Read books, ask questions,
books, Google things,
get on
yes.
Facebook,
Get on
whatever other
boards, get
Pam's
on-
doing.
yes.
That's why we all need each other, because Dawn is good at reading, and everybody on this at this table is
You're tech
great
savvy.
at one thing, or at multiple things. But I'm only good at one thing. But
No, it's not true.
but everybody is good at certain things. So it is this is a great example to surround yourself by people that can specialize in different aspects.
Yeah.
Because I can rely on Dawn to know the passage of the book from, some quote from a passage of the book. So, and that's very helpful to me because I would never remember that. So
Same.
yeah, how powerful was that quote she just gave of Jeremy's?
Right.
That is so powerful. And yeah, it's Chantel's, it's SICILE/KIRA. She also does autismcollege.com. But yeah, I got to work with her when she was back on the conference, stayed friends with her. She's a really great lady.
Oh, that's good to know.
Really
It's
like her.
information.
Yeah.
very cool.
Well, this was a very good info. Oh, go ahead, Dawn. Were
Yeah,
you
I
going to
was
say
gonna-
something before we wrap it up here?
Yeah, so I asked Ginger Lutmeyer, sorry, Ginger, if I could use her name. And so I'm going to keep my promise. I'm going to use her name. Ginger lives in Jeff City, and she was one of the parents who led the charge for autism insurance legislation, forcing insurance companies like the one my husband's employer was with that only paid 10 visits per lifetime of speech. And so she and others worked to change that, to force insurance companies to provide service coverage for services for us, because SWAP can't do everything. I mean, anyway, so I told her we need to keep our history in mind, and that she was a part of that. And she would say, or she texted back and she said, building a strong network to support families, to support their loved ones is what's important. Insurance reform and funding is secondary and only worthwhile if it supports the family's efforts. Each family needs to educate themselves and decide the best supports and interventions for their loved ones. So in that regard, they become the experts. The others, teachers, doctors, therapists, et cetera, are there as resources, but not the solution.
Wow. Well said.
With that thought too, I think, we talked about, being that voice, but it's hard because we're busy. If we can support those that person that can be that champion, because Ginger was kind of the lead, and we were there to support. So don't feel like you have to be that number one champion to fight for everything, but you can still maybe kind of find a middle ground where you can still function.
Right. And Ginger was in a unique position. Her kids are high functioning. She didn't need to be with her kids, 24/7. She lived in Jeff City. It's my understanding she had a family member who was heavily involved in politics. So when the legislative session was there, she was in the building. She was in the Capitol building. She could go from door to door to door. And she did that. She had the time, the energy at that point in time, built the networks, and got something done.
Good for her. Thank you for bringing her up. We needed to hear that. Applause to her. Hey, Kara?
How do we get involved with SWAP services? How do we get involved with Southwest Autism Project? Go to the PAC meetings. Show up at the PAC meetings, find out what they're about, find out what the providers are. I have a list of the upcoming PAC meetings. It may not air, this podcast may not air until after, but I'll go ahead and put May 14th, July 9th, September 10th, and November 12th are the dates for the remaining of the year. So it is through Skype. If you go on SWAP Southwest Autism Project, there's actually a link there to the side of the counties that we serve, that SWAP serves. And there you can go through, and there's actually a link for each one of these dates that you can go in and request to be in the meeting. So again, get involved. $9 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can
Okay.
Google that, but it's all on the DMH website,
Yes.
dmh.mo.gov.
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you. That's all for SWAP Services and PAC podcast. Tara, where can everybody find us?
Yeah, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, and on our website, navigatingadultautism.com. We also have a Facebook and Instagram page, Navigating Adult Autism Podcast. And then you can also contact us through our Facebook page or our email at moms@navigatingadultautism.com. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.